Welcome to today's Explainer, folks. So, looking over the specs of the Audi RS7 Performance, I realize we're dealing with a machine that lives a completely wild, almost contradictory double life. I mean, on one hand, it looks like an absolute menace, right? It's this aggressive, low-slung missile with massive 22-inch wheels and giant red brake calipers. But underneath all that intimidating sheet metal, it hides a really surprising secret. It is shockingly practical. So let's dive into how Audi managed to engineer a car that can literally melt your face off at the track, but still comfortably handle a Tuesday grocery run.
Okay, let's dive right into this. The source material captures this paradox perfectly. They noted it's a car which gobbles up the miles like nothing ever else seen. Now, you'd probably expect a really harsh, spine-shattering ride when you're dealing with these kinds of raw power figures. But actually, the reality is the exact opposite. It has this relentless, commanding presence on the road, just effortlessly consuming vast distances. It's a truly phenomenal grand tourer.
And that brings us to the ultimate paradox of this vehicle. On one side of the coin, you have genuine supercar performance metrics. We're talking blistering speed, violent launches, and incredibly aggressive styling. But then you contrast that with everyday family car practicality. 5 incredibly comfortable seats and a massive trunk. It's a track-ready monster that absolutely doesn't force you to compromise on the morning school run or a weekend road trip. So it really begs the question, how exactly do you balance two totally opposite extremes like that?
Well, let's get into it with Section 1, Aggressive Design and Practicality.
523. Now you might be thinking that's a horsepower figure or maybe a torque rating. Nope, that is 523 liters of boot space. For a car that looks this sleek, especially with that sloping sportback roofline, that is a massive amount of room. It's got a powered boot lid too, so you can just easily load up suitcases, gear, groceries, whatever you need. It totally proves that insane performance doesn't have to mean zero everyday utility.
And this brilliantly illustrates just how family-friendly this absolute beast really is. Audi actually upgraded this generation to a 5-seat configuration. The older ones used to only seat 4. Plus, you've got ISOFIX child seat mounts securely built right in. It's got those luxurious soft closed doors so nobody's slamming them shut and waking up the baby. And it even boasts 4-zone climate control. The kids in the back can literally set their own temperature. It is a cabin designed for real, actual life. Just, wrapped in Alcantara and premium leather. But okay, that high-tech interior does come with a very relatable modern headache. The MMI struggle. The cabin is basically dominated by these huge screens, including a 10.1-inch main display and an 8.6-inch lower screen with haptic feedback. And yeah, it looks like a spaceship, but man, those menus can be surprisingly complex. Just imagine sweating in there on a hot summer day, fumbling through multiple digital layers just to turn on the seat ventilation, all while trying to keep your eyes on the road. Honestly, a couple of old-school physical buttons would have been a game changer here.
Moving right along to Section 2, the bi-turbo V8 powertrain. This is the beast part. Boom! 630. That is the colossal horsepower output we're dealing with. 630 PS, paired with a massive 850 Nm of torque. All of this fury comes from a 4-liter bi-turbo V8 engine. And I was honestly amazed to see how Audi managed to squeeze an extra 30 PS out of this compared to the standard RS7. They slapped on larger turbochargers, cranked up the boost pressure, and gave the engine a complete remap. The resulting surge of power is just unbelievable.
And all of that translates into a blistering 3.4 seconds. That's 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in a heavy family sedan. Now, actually getting that time requires a bit of a sequence to activate launch control. You got to put it in RS mode, turn the ESC to sport, left foot hard on the brake, and pin the throttle. It's kind of finicky to nail down perfectly, but trust me, when you do, the way this thing pulls off the line is absolutely relentless.
And the speed totally doesn't stop there. So the standard package is electronically limited to 250 kilometers per hour, right? But the RS7 Performance actually comes standard with the dynamic package, which bumps that limit up to 280. But if you really want ultimate bragging rights, you can pay to have it boosted to a staggering 305 kilometers per hour. Now, why on earth would you need that? Well, picture yourself on the German Autobahn. Even if you're cruising at 300, you might literally have someone flashing their lights in your rearview mirror asking you to move over. That extra top speed is strictly for serious, unrestricted highway territory. All right, let's shift gears to Section 3, Precision Engineering and Grip. So the real secret sauce behind the RS7's legendary grip is Audi's famed Quattro all-wheel drive system. In normal everyday driving, it sends about 40% of the power up front and 60% to the rear. But the performance model gets this new, much lighter, self-locking center differential. If it senses even a hint of slip, it can dynamically route up to 70% of the power to the front or a massive 85% to the rear. This completely transforms the car, practically eliminating understeer and making this heavyweight surprisingly playful if you really decide to push it in the corners.
Now, what's really interesting about the engineering here is the rear wheel steering technology. This is pure magic. At low speeds, those rear wheels will actually turn up to 5 degrees in the opposite direction of the front wheels. This essentially shrinks the wheelbase virtually, making the car so much easier to whip around tight parking lots. But then, at high speeds, they turn up to 2 degrees in the same direction. That elongates the wheelbase, giving you rock-solid stability when you're making quick lane changes. It literally makes a massive, heavy sedan corner like a tiny sports coupe.
But hey, precision engineering isn't just about going fast, right? It's about efficiency too. And surprisingly enough, this fire-breathing V8 actually has a 48-volt mild hybrid system tucked away in there. First up, you have eco-coasting. If you lift off the throttle, the car can shut off the engine entirely and just coast at speeds all the way up to 160 kilometers per hour to save gas. Second, it's got active cylinder technology. If you're just cruising under a light load, it deactivates cylinders 2, 3, 5, and 8. You are literally driving a 4-cylinder family car right up until you mash the pedal. It's a brilliant piece of tech.
Which brings us to our final section. Section 4. The verdict on performance. Now, you'd probably assume a car this aggressive would use a lightning-fast dual-clutch transmission, maybe something like Porsche's famous PDK, especially since they're under the same corporate umbrella. But no, Audi actually went with a traditional torque converter. But honestly, don't let that fool you for a second. The shifts are remarkably fast. If you pop it into manual mode and use those steering wheel paddles, the downshifts are so aggressive and instantaneous. Audi proved here that you absolutely don't need a dual clutch to deliver a truly visceral, sporty driving feel.
But here's where we hit a bit of a snag. Let's call it the insulation paradox. Audi's engineers actually went out of their way to remove sound insulation from the front of the vehicle, from behind the engine, and near the exhaust. The goal was obvious, right? Let the driver hear that raw, roaring V8. But they also equipped the car with double-glazed acoustic windows, so the result is that the cabin is so incredibly quiet, all that beautiful natural engine sound just gets blocked right out. To compensate, Audi pumps fake artificial exhaust notes into the cabin through the stereo speakers, and honestly, for a car with this much pedigree, relying on synthetic sound is just a bit of a letdown.
So that leaves us with one final provocative question. In this relentless pursuit of building the ultimate, comfortable, daily drivable supercar, did Audi actually make the RS7 Performance a little too refined? Did they sacrifice the raw, untamed soul of a V8 at the altar of double-glazed luxury? Look, it is an absolute marvel of engineering. You've got endless grip, impossible speed, and room for the kids. But if you're looking for the pure, unadulterated grit of a sports car, its very perfection might just be its biggest flaw. Definitely something to think about the next time you see one of these beasts silently gobbling up the miles. Thanks so much for joining me on today's Explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.